Can you hear me? There we go. Thanks for taking your time here with us today. And as the title says, really want to talk about how we can get going and build really meaningful breakthrough AI solutions built from unified data. So of course, AI has captured the imagination of us all. It certainly is a breakthrough technology, set of technologies, and it really is a paradigm shift for how we think about building applications and how we think about ultimately delivering value in our businesses. And certainly at Intersystems, we work with our clients every day on delivering value for their businesses and for their clients. And what I was hoping to do is give you some helpful hints from what we've seen happening from successful deployments and how you can turn that into real and demonstrable value. So, taking a step back and thinking about the effectiveness of AI and what you really need to do to be successful, there are a couple of key ingredients that lead to ultimate business success. First and foremost, you need lots and lots and lots of data. And you need data from different parts of your business. Everything that you can consume, you really need lots of different data because that data will form the trained models that ultimately deliver these results for you. And the more information that you feed them, the more accurate that those results will be. At the same time, you need trusted data, not just lots of data, but also trusted data. And what I mean by that, obviously, is you certainly can use data that's farmed from external sources, but your own internal information is your corporate memory and a really important part of delivering those breakthrough solutions that are different than what your competitors are going to deliver for their businesses. And so you've got to be able to trust that data, both that it is your own natural proprietary data, but also that it's very clean, because certainly we want to reduce hallucinations. We want the models to not have to make things up and bridge the gaps between what you've got. So having trusted, clean data is really important. And then finally, because you have that trusted, clean data that's proprietary to your business, you really need to think about how you protect that IP and how you make sure that you do all of these models in a way that is trusted and supported by your chief information security officer, right? That all makes sense, right? Ultimately, I would argue that all of these requirements are really driving what we call a data fabric kind of architecture and solution. Data fabrics are not new. They've been around for some time, but AI actually accelerates the need for this kind of architecture, and ultimately delivering data fabric architectures will help deliver success for you in your AI application aspirations. So when we think about data fabric, and a lot of people that talk about data fabrics, when we think about data fabrics, right, there are a couple of common concepts. So this is a complicated slide. I see you taking pictures. That's good because it's probably a little bit hard to read in the back. But if you stay with me for a second, data fabric is the next generation data management architecture that basically recognizes a couple of realities of the world. One is that you'll have multiple silos of data across your enterprise. And certainly these multiple silos of data are proliferating very quickly with the advent of cloud and newer technologies, different departments, different applications, and they're all running their businesses using this data, so you can't interfere with it. And so the notion of a data fabric is that you can connect or collect data from any of these sources. And that is really a paradigm shift, because it used to be you'd always have to copy the data somewhere before you could do anything with it. But in the notion of data fabric, it's really connect to it or collect it depending on what makes the most sense. The second thing is that it's got to be any kind of data. You can't be relegated to structured transactional data or document data or object data. You've got to be, all of the data that you have has got to be part of your data fabric infrastructure. And again, this gets back to making sure that you can create a complete picture for the models that you're building in your AI infrastructure. And then finally, you need to be able to run any kind of analytic against this data. And one of the things that gives me pause when I think about the advent of AI and its transformational notion is it's very easy to think about AI as kind of the only tool that you'll ever need, because it is so amazing, and it truly is amazing. But in fact, keep in mind that AI is A, only as good as the data you give it, or the problems that you set it up to solve. And many of those things get created by the processes that we've been building for the past 3, 5, 10, 20, even 30 years. So don't throw out your relational models, don't throw out your machine learning and your deep learning algorithms, because they are all accretive to the intelligence that you're feeding now into this AI machine. So in your data fabric architecture, connect, collect any kind of data, any kind of analytic, of which generative AI is a piece. And so kind of keeping that in mind, and don't throw out the baby with the bathwater and start over, but in fact think about how you can leverage AI in this construct to really expand and extend the value of the solutions that you're creating. A couple of key things in here that I'd like to mention also. I've been in this business for a long time, and some things kind of repeat themselves over time. And one of the two things that I wanted to leave you with, in addition to what we've talked about already, as you're building out your data fabric architecture and ultimately delivering value for AI in your enterprise. The first is, as you're building out these new architectures and applications, think about how you can move the processing to the data and not move the data to the processing. This is a really big concept, right? It's very easy to think, gee, I'll take a bunch of stuff and I'll ship it off to my LLM and I'll get some answers. And that's all well and good, but it's constraining in many aspects. First, certainly it takes time. There is latency, the speed of light. You've got to move data from one place to another. It takes time. It can be expensive. And ultimately, if you're moving data from your source systems to an external source to go process it, what happens when the data in your source systems change? It becomes very expensive to manage that synchronization over time, and ultimately the data that you've sent off to these models can become stale. Stale data equals stale answers, which are suboptimal for the business outcomes that you're looking for. And thirdly, if you're moving data from your source, especially internal or proprietary business data, that comes with a whole sense of trust, privacy, and security, and making sure that any downstream things that take advantage of that data or information don't expose your IP externally. So point number one is, keep in mind, try to do your best to move the processing to the data and not move the data to the processing. The other thing to keep in mind is that when you do this, you ultimately create trust. And with the advent of any new technology, there's always this curve of excitement. I'm a technologist, so I get excited about new technology. I'm sure most of you here are the same. But it does take a while for our customers, our users, start to actually trust that information or that technology to use it to drive the business. And so focusing on trust is really easy when you've got easy provenance back to the source data, because you've moved the processing to your source data and you've not taken an extract and pushed it somewhere else. You've also got the notion of traceability and leveraging AI tools to actually explain what the model did to create the answer that it created. So you can actually use AI on, like AI squared, AI on AI, to explain how you got to the answer set. Ultimately, there are many industry analysts that are talking about the notion of the hype cycle, or the excitement around generative AI, and how it's peaked, and there's going to be a bit of a trough of disillusionment as people are not finding all of the instantaneous ROI that they were expecting. And I think that's only natural in any of the technology cycles we see, but I also believe that the nature of AI is so important and transformative that we will get through that pattern very, very quickly. So figuring out ways to build trust into your applications through the baseline architecture and compliance, and of course there's a whole compliance pavilion down the street, as well as traceability back to your source data while you reduce your hallucinations, will ultimately lead you to faster time to value for your clients. And finally, and this goes without saying, when you're venturing into new applications with AI, thinking about collecting your data, running all of the analytics, don't throw out what you've done, but enhance it with these new technologies. Set some objectives for those new applications that you're building, and meet or exceed those objectives, or shut it down and move on to the next project. And that will help you avoid that trough of disillusionment. As the announcer said kindly when introducing me to come up here, I'm Scott Gnau. I'm from Intersystems. We are a leading data management technology company. We supply technology to some of the world's largest and most complex organizations building their complex applications for mission criticality. We are a core data fabric enabling technology. And if any of this was interesting or you'd like to talk about it further, please come back and visit with us in our booth. We're in Hall 5, the SFA Pavilion, spot number 11. I thank you again for your kind attention and wish you a really great conference.